recording? Maybe. I think I'm recording, hopefully. And now I'm going to share my screen so you can see my PowerPoint. Can you see it? I can't see the chat now with the PowerPoint up, but Stacy is in the chat. So if you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat and Stacy will take care of those, and then I will address some questions at the end, and Christy will too. So thank you guys for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to join us to talk a little bit about the new revision of POL 201 and some Canvas tips and tricks. We've had a lot of changes this year with the new LMS and now with some new changes in POL 201. We wanted to just take some time to go over all of this with you guys and take questions, and then I will send out a recording and some support documentation later on today or early tomorrow that goes over all the stuff that we're talking about today. You obviously should know Stacy and myself. We've been around for long enough now that we're old faces, but we've been around for a long time. Stacy's been around since 2006, but we are your main contacts for POL 201. So if you have questions, if you have concerns, if something comes up in a class, we are your first points of contact. So typically if one of us is out of office, we have our out of office up and it will bounce back to the other one. But if you have questions, we are the ones that you need to contact. We're actually going to start with the Canvas information and some tips and tricks from Dr. Christy Scott. Christy, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Christy's been around Ashford for a long time, has worked in some different areas too, and she has been one of our main contributors during this whole Canvas transition. So we're going to turn it over to Christy and let her talk a little bit about some different Canvas tips and tricks. Christy, do you need this PowerPoint up onto your next slide, or are you going to go ahead and share your screen?
No, this is enough of the overview of me. Oh yeah, I forgot about you had this slide in there too. Yeah. Okay, great. We'll start with this slide, Jamie, and then I'll have you stop sharing and I'll pull mine up.
Okay.
So, well, thank you. Hello, everybody. It's really awesome to get to see some of the faculty that I work with daily in our new Zoom. I'm Christy. You've probably seen my name. And I am one of the 3 FSDAs that support the Poly 201 and other entry point courses. So I'm very thankful for the invite by Jamie and Stacy to share some of the Canvas tips and tricks for you guys in this course. Specifically, and just with Canvas, we're going to talk a little bit about how to manage your discussion boards a little bit more. At this point, you've probably noodled around with Canvas and seen that there's kind of lots of different places to work in Canvas, and so we'll look at that, subscribing to discussion boards and notifications and pinning discussions. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about how to build announcements and also how to utilize them effectively. And then a few points about how to direct students to the waypoint information that in Canvas, since it's not connecting to the gradebook right now. So these are just some of the main points we're going to touch on, but certainly if we have time, I can answer other questions that might come up. And I can't see the chat right now, but if you do have questions as I'm going over a few things, please make sure to put it in there, and Jamie or Stacy can let me know if I need to address something in more detail. So Jamie, if you want to go ahead and stop sharing, and then I will bring up my classroom.
And I can see this chat when I'm not sharing, so I'll be able to reply to any questions.
Yeah, and just feel free to interrupt me if I'm... Okay. How did I do that? Okay, give me 1 second, actually. It looks like I momentarily had gotten... Oh, no, there it is. Why isn't that showing? I'm not finding the screen that I want. Oh, there it is. It's just showing black for some reason. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay,
Yes, we can.
I'm actually going to. Okay, I just wanted to bring you to the front page of a class. So just as a little FYI, this is and the course that I'm using is just our faculty training course instead of a live student course. But it looks the same, it's built the same as for you guys. And the first thing I wanted to just briefly mention is the discussion boards. I know that's been a area that's been a little different in Canvas than it was in eCollege, the way that the discussions are displayed and to identify who's replied. And hopefully you've been noticing that there's been upgrades to that as we've kind of been building and getting into phase 2, where you can see that there's greater identification of who has responded to you in the discussions. However, keeping track of those discussions is still maybe something that you're working on. And if you might have noticed this grayed out discussion bar here in the light gray ones, that's a tool that you as the instructor have. Students won't see this discussion tab here. They can only get in through the modules, but you have this little shortcut. So this is the easiest way I find instead of having to go through modules and scroll down and find the discussion. Pop right into this discussion tab here. And you will see that they will actually rotate in order. They are not stationary on the page. They will rotate in order depending on which discussion has had the most recent activity. So if your Ask Your Instructor post or thread doesn't really get used very much in the class, you might find that it's way at the bottom, mixed in between like week 3 and week 5, and you might miss that there is a student post in there. So one of the handy things to do that I find is to pin the discussion. And the way you pin a discussion is you go to any of the discussions here. Sorry, the video's showing on my tool that I need. Pick any discussion you want. Let's say I want to pin week 2 online environment discussion. I want that to stay where I can see it always. I just go over here to the little gear icon, go to the drop down, pick pin, and it automatically will push it up to the top. And I can even rotate, drag and drop them and rotate them, but they will stay in this pinned area. So I can say, well, I don't need this one anymore because I'm done with week 1. I want week 2 to be at the top and most accessible for me. I can unpin it just like that. And I can unpin this one. And you see I've already pinned Ask Your Instructor here. And so it's always going to be there on the top unless I choose to rotate it around. But that's just an easy way. Whoops. Actually went into it. That's an easy way to kind of manage where you're at, especially when you've got like 5 weeks. And as I said, the Ask Your Instructor might float down the bottom because it won't be being used as much. How many of you have tried using the pinning function for discussions? I can't see the responses, so somebody have to let me know. I seen Jamie nodding. How many people knew that this option was here or have tried it?
There's a couple posting in the chat that they've used it.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so when you are working in the discussion, let's just see, I'll go in here. Once you post in a discussion, it will automatically make you subscribed here. You've probably seen this little green button. It will automatically put you in a subscription to be notified when there are new posts made in this discussion. However, there's a slight caveat to this. You still have to have your notifications set in your global toolbar notifications for discussion posts for this subscription to push through. Okay, does that make sense? There's a 2-step part of that. So let's go over here to the notification section. Sorry, I have to keep moving my videos.
Hey, Christy, we have a question in the chat. They're asking, is there a way in the discussion board to see only posts of those students who have replied to you?
Only those that have replied to you. Not specifically. I just select the unread when I go in there, and then I can like hopefully, you know, you can see it a little bit easier who's responded to you. But we don't have the same kind of search features or tree feature that you see. We didn't even have that specific feature in eCollege. That would be a really cool feature. But maybe Canvas, we'll develop that. But that's a really interesting point. So you've got two different toolbars here. You've got your global navigation bar with the Ashford crest here, and then your profile, and then these other features. You are going to go into your profile account and go into this notification section. And this gives you options for all of the different activities, discussions, gradebook, different things in here for you to select how often, if you want to be notified for them at all, and if so, how often. Notify me right away, send daily summary, send a weekly summary, or don't send me anything. For that subscription, that green subscription button to actually notify you that there's a post in that thread, you have to come down to this discussion post section and click the notification. I suggest right away, and that way you will, well, it's up to you, because if you suggest right away, you will be continuously getting emails and notifications that a student has posted in the thread. Maybe that's what you like. Maybe you want once a day, you'll get a notification. But you need to select however the frequency that you would like to get the notification here for it to actually push to you. It won't happen just by that subscription. So I'm going to cover a couple other things here, and if there's questions, just throw them at me, Jamie. How many of you, well, actually, I'm going to put this out here. How many of you have explored this page and are using notifications? You'll probably find that it's really, really helpful to have, let's see. The submission comment window selected. How many of you have experienced getting a submission comment from a student yet? Do you know what it is? I wish I could see the chat. Should do a little poll. Anybody? Definitely gotten a submission comment, and you're probably like, what is this? This is so weird, because it's a little different that students can provide a comment to you in the gradebook. And I have found very commonly that they will utilize that as a tool to ask you a question. Instead of using the Ask Your Instructor, instead of going to an inbox question, instead of emailing you, they will be looking through the gradebook maybe, or looking through, or somehow accessing it through the assignment. And as they were reading through it, they'll have a question and they will pose it to you there. And you haven't even graded that. It might even be weeks from now, and all of a sudden the submission comment comes up in this. So it's really helpful to have this box selected. I always have it selected for automatic because it's not an intuitive place to be looking for comments, and that's the only way you would know, except for you could also, it will show in your actual inbox in the course. So that's an important one. And you know, there are other ones that you can choose. The conversation actually is the inbox. Again, not necessarily intuitive in that way. If you want to be notified when there is an inbox message, this would be where you would select there. Some of these things may not apply to us in total groups, alerts, whatnot, but the most important thing is making sure you are subscribed to the discussion post if you want to be alerted. I don't always use it because I'm in my classes so often that I'm just kind of capturing what I get there. But the conversations, which are the inbox messages, and the submission comments are significant. If you want to know when when students have submitted work, you can select there as well. All right, I'm just looking at the time. Any questions about the notifications before I move into announcements?
Nope, we're good.
Okay. So announcements. How many of you have been having fun with the options of announcements in Canvas? You can do an audio or video recording. You can easily post a YouTube video in your announcement, and you can have students comment on your announcements. That's another new trick in Canvas, isn't it? Has anybody opened up an announcement for comments yet? Or experienced students posting comments? It is something that we're really encouraging that you do with your announcements. It is an easy function that you can do where if you see the toolbar, I can easily this one's open for comments. I can close it for comments, or I can go right back and open it. You can turn it on and off if you wanted. We are encouraging that you are utilizing this tool because it's a really great way to engage with your students on another level. A little bit maybe outside of the graded environment too. So there's a little bit more of a social presence. And that's one point to look at, that there's sort of, you can certainly, if you'd like, allow comments for every announcement, but you can also be selective in how it can actually become part of the tool of the announcement. So in this example, this is my kind of welcome and my introduction and alerting the participants in this training to learn a little bit more about me. And one of them decided to put a comment in there and just say hello. And I responded back here. So it becomes almost exactly like a discussion board. It is public. It functions just like a discussion board if you're engaging with students, but it doesn't connect to the gradebook at all. It is really just a dialogue that you're having. And even though we were having the introduction, this participant wanted to share that she was really excited about the course, and I got to share some excitement with her. And so I find that it's interesting to see how much people do like to engage with you in any way they can. In any of these posts, we could also include a video response if I had wanted to. It will function just like any of the other discussion windows where you can utilize all the tools. You can embed a picture, you can embed a YouTube video, you can video record yourself and saying, hey, great to meet you. So if you are going to utilize the comment section, you will see if somebody has responded by a little numeric notifier here at the top. I know that there was a reply. It's small. You sort of need to pay attention to it when you go in. There isn't a notifier on this. But it's important that if you are going to have announcements open for comments, that you are checking back, because it's kind of that closing the loop concept. Like if I had this open for comments and this participant had said hello to me and I never said hello back to her, it feels, sort of, I feel like it's a little disgenuine, if you're engaging and you're providing opportunity for people to engage with you and then not come back and engage with them. So be cognizant of, excuse me, which announcements you have open and that you're utilizing in that form. So you can see here, this is one of the ways in your list of announcements right here. That's your notifier that you have somebody responding to you. And I just kind of always keep them open, but you might, if you're posting an announcement just as a reminder, it might be a good time to use comments. Actually I think it's always a good opportunity to have comments. If you're posting about an additional resource, let's say that you have found a great article that you want to share with students and you're encouraging them to read it and think about something, especially it's political science. There's always something going on in society that you guys, I'm sure, are bringing in. The political nature of your class. Maybe you found something in the media that you want students to consider, but you're putting into an announcement. That's such a great opportunity to use that comment section for additional engagement with students. So that's just a trick. I wasn't going to go over the basics of how to post an announcement. I was just kind of wanting to talk about the use of comments in an announcement. So any questions about announcements and those in general? I can always follow up later too. So I just am trying to watch the time, Jamie, how much time.
You're fine.
Okay. So the other thing that I was going to talk about a little bit was the use of the speed grader and waypoint grading functionalities. How many of you are enjoying using speed grader? Are you finding that it's making grading discussions a little easier,
It's
quicker?
easier. I used to keep a paper track, and so now I don't have to, and it's a lot better.
A paper track of the
Like who had
rubric?
posted and like what they had posted, and I love
Okay.
being able to just see it all and post and do the rubric all together. It's a lot easier.
Yeah, it makes it a really good feature is to be able to put that instructional quality actionable item feedback right in the speed grader as well. So
Right.
you complete
So
and do the other. So yeah, it's great.
So you could access SpeedGrader either directly through the discussion or through the gradebook and the discussion item here. Go right into SpeedGrader. And as you've noticed, well, let's see, this one I've already filled out. And I can tell that I've used the rubric because it will pop, this little extra grade element has popped up. I'm going to go into, I know there's one. Okay, so ignore the name at the top of the picture. Nobody caught that.
I did.
So this is what it would look like not used, right? And then I would open up, you click on that little bar to open. Here's a little trick. See these little 3 white dots? If you put your cursor there, you can pull it and it will show you the full rubric versus sometimes it will pop up just like that. If you pull it like that, it'll show you the whole rubric. It's a little bit easier to kind of work through. And then you can select, the options. You can add extra comments here. This is an additional place to put extra comments. And that will show for the student. Pick your selections, how you think they did. Of course, she did perfectly. It will tally, let's say I decide no, it will tally the amount of points you had, 4.88 out of 5. Now you still have to hit save, and you still have to put it up in here. That is something they are working on to make that auto-populate, but I'm not sure if that will be in phase 2 or not. So that's using the rubric in, this is just sort of a simple walkthrough. And with the rollout of SpeedGrader, you might have noticed there are some changes in the course requirements, and this is one of them that we are asking that you absolutely are using this rubric. Sometimes it would just be depending on the course. All courses have the SpeedGrader rubric developed for their courses, and this is an expectation of providing discussion board grades. Now, it's not just a numeric grade, it's using this rubric, and just as importantly is some explanation to the student of the feedback that you've given them in the rubric, or just in general of their discussion post. You can add an attachment here in the comment section. You can do a video response or audio. I know that we have some video users that are participating in the forum today, so I'm sure this has been really nice. It makes it so quick and so easy. You can just pull this up and I can just do an audio recording and say, hey Laura, I was really fascinated by your discussion of interactions with students this week. I think that's a great way to make it a little bit more personalized too. But it's also important to have some text here because students don't always open that video, just at least to alert them to it. Say, hey, great job. Please make sure to listen to the video because they maybe just don't even notice that it's there. It may not be intuitive to students. So I always think just a little text, at least to direct them to your additional feedback in video or audio is helpful. But we are looking definitely that you have comments in this window as well, which are individualized and help the student advance their learning. Even if it was a really great post, tell them why they did such a good job. Because they'd like to know, it's an affirmation of the work that they've been doing. Maybe, explain that they did a great job of breaking down a certain system of government. Sorry, this is where we get a little content. But, that they identify maybe a factor that is not normally identified or something that can kind of let them know, hey, I kind of might have this poli-sci thing down. Maybe I know what's going on. Maybe I should be a political science major because my instructor just thinks I am wonderful. Or if they have some work to do, show them where they can do that work. I know it's easy to just kind of cruise through it, but this is really, the discussion boards, they put a lot of time and effort in, and this is kind of their heart and soul in this, and they want to know. They really need to kind of feel like, yeah, I'm not just a number on the page to an instructor. All right, so then you hit submit, and it pushes it all to the gradebook. So this is with discussions. Unfortunately, it doesn't all push to the gradebook right now with using the Waypoint grading rubric. SpeedGrader pushes nicely to the gradebook, but as you've noticed that the numeric grade in a Waypoint assignment will return to the gradebook, but the actual content will not. And I just realized, Jamie, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show that in this section, that actual Waypoint feedback, but you all are familiar with Waypoint feedback. The issue that, if you are not familiar with, is that students will not be able to get the Waypoint feedback by going through here because we only have SpeedGrader connected, and it does not auto-populate in here. So there's two elements of this. We've asked for instructors to guide their students towards that Waypoint feedback, guiding them back to where they did their Waypoint submission. And that's how they will access that feedback. And we're going to go over a little bit of how to provide them that information in just a second. The other aspect that I think Stacy and I have talked about you guys doing in this class is if you going into that gradebook, even in that SpeedGrader comment and saying, hey, please make sure to check Waypoint for the feedback on this assignment when it's a written assignment. So Stacy and Jamie have developed and are going to be providing to you an example of a way to communicate the steps that a student needs to go through to go back to Waypoint to actually check your feedback. You spend a lot of time putting in-text comments in, putting Waypoint rubric information in, and giving them individualized summary feedback. We want them to see it. We want them to be able to utilize it. So I'm going to go, whoops, I didn't need that because I already have that picked up. Go to an announcement. And I'm going to enter into the code that they're going to provide you. And you would put something in your topic of accessing, let's see, I had something close to that, accessing Waypoint feedback. Or maybe we'll even be a little more specific, how to access Waypoint feedback. All right, so this link with this Kaltura video that is a little video that shows students how to do it and some information, they're going to provide you that link. The announcement content is an example for you to kind of make your own as well, but when we post it, sorry, I keep having to, the video keeps going over my tools. It's not cooperating. There we go. Oh, my title disappeared. This is an example that Stacy developed. It's got wonderful graphics, and that will come with that HTML element. But you can change the text if you want, just to, definitely change the name, and you would want to make this a little bit more your own. But it includes this wonderful video. Little link right there to the video for students to be able to have a walkthrough of how to get back into Waypoint. They just go back into the same link that they used when they submitted if you need to direct them. So I'm just watching the time, and Jamie, I don't know if you want me to cover anything else, if I've hit everything you've wanted, or...
I think that's good. Stacy, can you think of anything else that we want Christy to cover?
No, I think that's good for right now.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Christy.
You're welcome. I was just going to say back to this, Jamie and Stacy can give you more information, sort of what they're looking for if you have any questions on this part, because this is just a communication to students. All right, so I will stop sharing, but I'm going to stay in the forum and be available for any questions.
Awesome, thank you. And if you have questions about anything that Christy just talked about, you can go ahead and ask those in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Can you see my screen, everybody?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the revision. So on top of transitioning over to Canvas, we are also going through yet another revision of POL 201. So basically every year, every other year, we're going to end up revising the course. So we've been working under the other course for about 1.5 years, and so it was time to revise again. It seems like it was 2 days ago, but it wasn't, so here we go again. So we made some changes in POL 201, and like with any change, some of them are going to work, some of them are going to flop. There's going to be bugs. Like right now, for those of you on the 11/21 start, I'm on that start. We're having issues with the first video module in week 2, so it's currently not working. So if you have a student reach out to you, let them know that we know it's not working, we're on it, we're trying to get it fixed. But there are these bugs, and that's part of why I'm on that first start too, is to kind of work through the different issues that we encounter during the first few sections of this course. But the things that I wanted you to be aware of. So what's new? What's changed? So the big things are listed here. The first is there's now an open forum discussion. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in a few minutes, but it's actually based on something that the history department does. And it's kind of a good way for students to interact a little bit more with each other. We're hoping that they'll get some more reflection in those posts, and hoping that maybe some current events and some different topics can be posted there. But I'll talk more about the open forum and how it's different here in a few minutes. But in each week now, there's still the week 1 discussion 1, week 1 discussion 2, but the discussion 2 is this open forum. So we went from 2 discussions to 1 discussion, and now we're back to 2 discussions, but the open forum's a little bit different, and requires a little bit less instructor participation overall as well. The other new thing, we eliminated the journals. So it used to be in week 2, 3, and 4, we had the journal activities. Those are no longer. We're hoping to get some of that reflection in the open forum. And then there's also now these video modules that we created in week 2, 3, and 4. Basically, they require the student to watch a brief video and answer some questions, and then they auto grade. So instructors really don't need to worry about those videos once they're actually working. So hopefully we'll get those up and going soon so that there are less issues. But if you're on the 11/21 start, we do know that the week 2 one is not working currently. We also eliminated the learning activity. So the way that that assignment was scaffolded is gone, and there's a whole new final assignment, and scaffolding towards that final assignment has been created. So now it's based on a policy, so the student will select a policy and hopefully something that relates to their major or something that they're very interested in, and then they will work through the different course learning outcomes. In week 2, they decide on their topic and then do an annotated bibliography. In week 3, they're going to do an outline. In week 4, they actually submit their draft of the assignment to the Writing Center for feedback. The instructor does still have to go through and do the rubric for completion of this, but there isn't like actual instructor feedback in that week 4 assignment, so it's a little less intense for us as instructors. And then the final paper, the final product in week 5. So that has been restructured completely and is totally different. There's also some new resources in reading. Some of them were just updated, some of them are brand new that have been interspersed throughout the course. So those are the big things that are new in the new POL 201. So what's the same? Well, the week 1 through week 5 DQ1 is still basically the same thing. The content has been tweaked. Some of the wording is a little bit different. We took out the by the letter of your last name on the Electoral College discussion, some little things like that. But overall, the content of those discussions is the same and is still based on the same 5 main topics. The real big change in the discussions is we are no longer requiring 2 APA formatted sources. A lot of instructors were getting caught up in the APA formatting and providing a lot of feedback there. And we really want to focus on the content of the discussion. So if a student cites something with just a website, or if a student doesn't cite at all, I mean, you can point it out, but it's no longer required that they have these APA formatted sources. And we're focusing more on the content overall of the discussion, not on how it's formatted and if they have sources. As Christy was talking about, and as we were talking about a little bit in the chat, it is very, very important that you go through and fill out the SpeedGrader rubric and in its entirety. Even if the student received a 5 out of 5 or a 4 out of 5, it's important that they have all of those rubric criteria filled out, and that you have personalized, individualized, substantive feedback for those discussions. The discussion one each week needs that substantive feedback so that the student knows what they did right, what they did wrong, how they can improve, those sorts of things. It's very, very important. But overall, those discussions are the same. Also, those weekly textbook review quizzes, those are the same. There's a database of usually 50 questions per week, and 10 of them are given to each student for them to answer based on the textbook reading. So those are the same and have not been modified. So back to this open forum. I can't see the chat, so I will answer any questions and go back through, but hopefully Stacy's taking care of some of that as well. But the open forum, so like I said, it's utilized in history courses. We're hoping that it gives a little bit more genuine interaction, a little bit more reflection, a little bit of a place to talk about your paper topic, get some feedback on it, talk about current events, those sorts of things. It's been set up so that each week there is a main question that the student needs to answer, and then they can pick one from a list of about 10 to reflect on for the week. These are set up differently. So the only requirement of the student is that they must post at least 100 words by Monday in this forum. So if they only post once and they post 100 words, then that's fine. If they post 20 times, that's fine too. I actually graded my first week of open forums this morning, and the rubric is the same as the basic discussion question, so that's something to keep in mind. However, for the most part, it should be a participation grade. It shouldn't be based on, grammar. It shouldn't be based on, their content should be more reflection, more their own opinion, so it's not really that type of a grade. So keep that in mind when you're grading. If they posted 100 words, and they answered 2 of the questions, then they should be good to go. In mine, I ended up with 32 who had, and the zeros. The people who didn't post anything, I ended up with people who got full credit, and then I think I had 2 who didn't post the full 100 words, so they got docked a little bit for that. But overall, I had good success the first week. As the instructor, you are not required to participate in the forum. We do ask that you at least monitor it, make sure everybody's, being respectful, being nice, those sorts of things. But if there's a question there that doesn't get answered, it does actually say in the prompt that, you might not see a question in this forum and that they need to email you, and that questions shouldn't be put in there. It's more for student-to-student interaction is our hope. But you can definitely post in there if you see something that's blatantly wrong. If you see issues breaking out in there, then definitely step in and say something. But overall, it's more of a completion. It's worth 1 point each week, and it's more of a way for that reflection to kind of take part of the place of the journals that we got away with, that we eliminated. The video modules, these are based on the different weeks. So week 2 is the federalism, week 3, 3 branches, week 4, political parties. And this was how the journal entries were structured as well. So it also works to replace those journal assignments. And I already basically talked about how it's just video clips with little short quizzes, and it auto grades. So once it's up and going, you won't really need to worry about the video modules. It'll just be up to the student to complete them, and they should auto grade into the gradebook for you.
Jamie?
Yes.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Pete has a good point here and a question. It's in regard to the open forum grading rubric.
Yes.
Is it just like a one click? Can you sort of just maybe go over a little bit?
Right now it is set up just like the discussion one. So like it's the same standardized discussion thing. And I think that might be something we look into changing in the future, but it wasn't something that I was able to change with this revision. So yes, you have to go through and click the 5 boxes. But it's pretty quick. I was able to grade all of mine in just under 40 minutes this morning, and it was my first time through. Obviously, I'd already read all of them, so I didn't have to go back through and read all of it again, but I could just quickly go through and get it graded. So yeah, there is that step of having to click through the grading. I do think that a different rubric would probably work better there, but at this point, that's not in there. So at this point, you do have to click through all the boxes.
Okay, thanks, Jamie.
Yeah.
And Pete did ask, would it be acceptable to do an override grade or number, but as opposed to completing all of the boxes on the rubric? And the answer to that question would be no. We do have to do each of the boxes because we need to keep in mind the university collects data based on the completion of those rubrics and speed graders. So it'll be a little bit of a pain, but I think it will be fast and easy as we progress through.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I had zeros. I had like 32 that got full points, and then I had 2 that I had to modify the rubric. So it goes really fast. I mean, is it ideal? No, but it's what we have for right now, and we're going to go with it. So, okay, is this the slide I was on? Yes. Okay, so no, I'm all screwed up. It went all the way through. Sorry. See if I can share my screen again. Can you still see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay. Video modules. Okay. So the week 2 through 5 assignment. So this changed. So there's no longer a learning activity or an assignment in week 1, which is kind of a nice little break. And then in week 2, it focuses on selecting their topic, which they'll do in the discussion board a little bit, and then on the annotated bibliography. Week 3 then is their thesis statement and an outline for the paper. Week 4 is where they create their draft and they submit it to the Ashford Writing Center. This actually doesn't have to be submitted until Monday, so the feedback for it isn't until later in the week, which is a little bit tricky and a little bit different. And then the week 5 final research paper in week 5. So basically they select their policy, and the final paper needs to be a minimum of 6 pages, 8 resources, and at least 5 from the Ashford University Library. They'll get 4 of those resources when they complete their week 2 annotated bibliography assignment. And we've been working with Jordan in the library to develop some new guides and kind of different ways to guide them through the library to get the best sources and resources that they can utilize. Really want to teach them how to find good sources, what a good source is, how to integrate that into their research paper, those sorts of things, and getting that all the way through to the content in that week 5 final paper. So it's definitely structured differently than the learning activities that we had before. The main grading for instructors is going to be in week 2, week 3, and week 5. Week 4, you will have to confirm that they submitted to the Writing Center and they uploaded the feedback. It's another short 1-point completion grade. If they did it, they get full points. So it should be pretty easy grading. But week 2, week 3, and week 5, you will need those in-text comments and the substantive feedback in Waypoint for the students. A little bit more about that week 4 assignment. So they have to submit it, it's by day 3 of week 5. So if they submit it to the Writing Center on Monday, then they should have it back by day 3, which is Thursday. So that allows them the time to submit it like they would a regular end of the week assignment, but then get back the feedback and upload it to the classroom for us to then grade it. So the grading's a little bit different. You do not have to comment on their drafts. They will get that feedback from the Writing Center, and this is not the place for you to comment unless there's something really blatant that you see as you're going through it and you think the student needs to know, but it's not one of those full markup drafts. It's just, oh, look, they submitted it, they've got a draft, they've got feedback from the Writing Center, trying to get students to utilize the Writing Center, understand the importance of the Writing Center, understand how it can help them as well. There will be a rubric that you will have to complete, and then you will just put, you know, some type of feedback like, thank you for submitting your Writing Center feedback. I look forward to reading your final paper in week 5 or at the end of the week. You can provide some feedback or guidance, but it is not required. As long as they have that feedback from the Writing Center in there, they get full credit. So it should be a pretty easy grading week for you guys. So the final paper, it focuses on 4 of the learning outcomes for the course. So they're going to take their policy and bring it through and talk about how it relates to these different parts of the governmental process. So they'll talk about the historical basis and the constitutional basis of their policy, how it relates to the system of checks and balances, what role it plays within public policy, within elections, within whatever topic they've chosen, and then if it's impacted by the voting system or the election process. In that part, it could talk about different political parties, their stance on the policy, those sorts of things as well. So it will go through that structure to align with our course learning outcomes regarding their policy. So instructor expectations, most of these are the same as they were previously. In that discussion 1 each week, we are still requiring a minimum of 12 discussion responses. At least 6 of those need to be initial responses to students directly. All of these need to be individualized and personalized and relate to the student what they're talking about. And then your additional 6 can be a combination of initial and follow-up responses. One thing that we talked about briefly in the chat when Christy was talking was this engagement, and we definitely need to make sure that students feel like they're engaged and being heard and listened to in the classroom. So if a student, if you respond and then a student responds to you, please be sure to follow up with their response. Don't just let the engagement stop. Follow up, say, oh, thank you for your follow-up, and go from there to keep the conversation going. That's the point of the discussion, is to discuss and to engage with our students. So make sure that in your discussion boards you're doing that and keeping the students that are invested and are discussing invested in the discussion. The comments and feedback within Waypoint, that's still basically the same. In the week 2 and week 3 assignment, we're still expected to do a minimum of 3 in-text comments per page on those assignments. Those assignments will be shorter a little bit, so it'll be a little bit less in-text comments, but these should be focused on the content of the assignment. So focus on how they can better represent their policy. How can they redirect to a different thing? Talk about, in the week 2 assignment, the different sources that they're using. Is this a good source? Why? Those sorts of things. In the week 5 assignment, we're going to require a minimum of 1 in-text comment per page. One thing to think about with this, use common sense. I mean, when I go through an IQR class, I'm not going through each page of these assignments and counting the number of in-text comments. I'm looking, did the instructor engage? Did they actually read and help the student to better understand what they need to do to better their assignment? That's what I'm looking for. I'm not counting, oh, they only posted 2 on this page, but there's 6 on this page. Oh, it's not like that. Use common sense. Think about how you're engaging with your students. Make sure that you're giving them the content comments that they need to better participate, to better their paper so that it's a better paper for the final paper. Also remember that all assignments do require that substantive summative feedback. So that little blurb within the rubric there at the bottom is required. So you need to tell the student what they did well, what they can improve on, how they can better their assignment. And that's one of the nice things about these types of assignments that build is you can see the progress as the student goes through. Oh, okay, no, this source isn't going to work because of whatever. Tell the student that so that they know to find a different source and can integrate that into their paper. Also, we want to make sure that you're utilizing announcements effectively. Christy showed a little bit about how to use the announcement to help direct students to feedback. Also, make sure that you're posting your late policy, all of those main things. But I like to use the announcements also to engage with students a little bit, post an interesting current event, post a video that I think is interesting. Sometimes a video of myself talking about something that I noticed in their assignments that I think that they could use some feedback on. Just make sure that you're using those announcements, and only the top 2 or 3 show up in Canvas, so make sure that you're thinking about that as you post announcements as well. In the CETL, and I'm going to be sending out a little bit later today or early tomorrow, the POL teaching fundamentals and course-specific expectations. It goes through each part of the course and what is expected of you as an instructor in the course. So make sure that you read through that and look it over. If you have questions about anything on there, you can reach out to myself or Stacy and we can clarify for you. But those are the things that we're looking for when we go through an IQR your course. So if you're meeting all of those criteria, you're going to do very well on your IQRs. And just like with anything else, if you have questions about what's expected of you, please reach out to myself or Stacy. That's what we're here for. We can help guide you. We can help provide you with resources. We can direct you to where on the CETL you can find different things. That's what we're here for. So if you have questions, please reach out to either of us about these expectations. Before your next POL 201 course, if you weren't on the 1121 or 1128 start, if you were, you received an email from myself or from Stacy about what needs to be done in the different course materials. But make sure that you utilize your prep week for this next course because things are different. There are things that you need to revise and make sure that align with the new course. So look through your announcements, look through any resources or discussion examples that you have and that you utilize. Any of your feedback banks also need to be modified and revised to fit the new course. So make sure that you utilize that extra week effectively and modify these things. If you have questions as you're going through, of course, reach out. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here in a minute so I can see the chat. If you are in here right now, you can go ahead and copy this link and fill out the form to show that you've completed the faculty forum. I'll also send out this link later today or tomorrow with the recording of the video that goes through a little bit of this as well. But I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see the chat, and you can feel free to either pop on the mic or to post in the discussion chat. I can see the chat now.
Jamie, I went through the chat as you were presenting, so I think I've answered all of the questions. But if I did miss anything, if anyone still has questions for Jamie, if they can pop in and ask anything that I didn't already answer for you, that'd be great.
Yes, if you have questions now, I can see the chat. So if you have questions, please feel free to post them and I will respond. Pete, I am typing this code into the chat for you. Did that work? I'm trying it.
Yep.
Okay. If you would make sure to fill out that form, that's how I'm keeping track of who has actually either participated today or watched the video so that I'll know that you are clear to be scheduled for the course after you have read through this and watched everything. So please make sure to fill out the form. Any other questions that need to be addressed? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for attending today. I really appreciate it. Please reach out if you have any further questions. We are always happy to help. And we really appreciate you taking your time out today to spend a little bit of time with us and focus on POL 201. Thanks, guys.